Do a little bit of public service announcement and tell you what's my personal experience with like the terms of orgasms and uh so like you so-called ejaculating as a trans woman, because in reality it's way different in trans women than that is of cis men or whatever that is, because especially pre-transition, because like pre-HRT, it's very usual. You feel it down there, and like that's just about it, and you just spurt stuff out of it, and like that's just a thing, right? But now that I'm in probably say 7 months HRT, probably closer to 8 months HRT, I can tell you my personal experience as a trans woman in terms of sexual life or orgasming, because quite frankly I know this might vary depending on what trans woman it might be, especially, but I think it might help a lot of trans women, especially those new ones in starting HRT, to understand how does it feel like, how does it work, and whatever, if it feels the same than being pre-transition or cisgender as it might be, right? So like, let's just say orgasms, you don't just feel them down there. Don't get me wrong, you still feel the throbs of an orgasm down there, but it's not just all. Let's just practically say that you feel the orgasm escalate through your entire body in the form of like some sort of explosion, in some way that you feel like even your brain numbing for a bit. And this is especially considering that you don't necessarily gonna be ejaculating that much, but you feel it. You actually feel it like entirely through across your entire body, because especially a pre-orgasm, you feel your body quaking and shaking and all that sort of stuff, and like building up to like the climax. And when you climax, it keeps going. It's not just like a sort of like a relief type of thing. It goes on for a while, like constantly exploding, like some sort of like Big Bang type of thing, and until the point you get exhausted. But especially it just kind of keeps going. This is why a lot of trans women find, like myself, find themselves like they're kind of multi-orgasmic. You imagine for the 1 second you're like a cisgender woman, right? It gets similar to what a cisgender woman is in terms of orgasms. Like a cisgender woman can repeatedly orgasm over and over and over and over again until she exhausts herself, or like until her brain melts out. A transgender woman kind of feels like the same. In fact, the wiener down there, it's kind of a similar workings than that of a clitoris, if you can understand me, if anything. And the special thing about this is like a lot of like trans women that really can sort of like be multi-orgasmic in some way or another, especially if they keep going, because the horniness, the orgasm just goes on for a while in a way that keeps you aroused for like a longer bit than that if you were pre-transition or like a cis man or whatever, right? And this goes on for a while, obviously. So that must be taken in consideration when you're like a trans woman and you like want sexual relationships, and like you cannot feel it down there, especially because it's an entire whole body experience. And in terms of sexual life, the basic gist of it I can tell you is that it's a more sentimental experience. You don't get aroused easily on like the pornographic stuff that you used to be pretentious or whatever, but like instead you look for a more realistic, down to earth, emotional experience on terms of like sexual life or arousal. So like a lot of trans women will find themselves in a lot of ways that they get aroused with like a more intimate rather than a more like what's the word, pornographic type of way. And it's also very similar to what cisgender women feel in some regard, because cisgender women are all about, sentimentality and sexual relationships and like the more the erogenous areas. And especially I gotta talk about the erogenous areas, okay? The erogenous areas, like especially the neck, the breasts, the arms, or it expands a lot further into a whole lot of the body, especially in like areas that have a more sensitive skin, especially. And this is because like with HRT, your skin gets a lot more sensitive, especially even including like your down there area or like your breast or whatever. So like, this maximizes like the arousal factor of these of the whole body by like a tenfold, especially if you're like a trans woman. And like the thing about like pornography, because let's talk about pornography for a little bit. Pornography, you're gonna be looking, if you're a trans woman, for like a lot more, sort of like a grounded emotional experience. That's not a lot of pornography that are, sort of like centric to, or like a catering to transgender woman or woman in general, because a lot of the consumption of pornography is very mainly male centered and especially male dominated, and that's kind of like a bad thing. But I will recommend you, if you're looking to like having a quick one, or like having a select some sort of arousal or something from like watching something similar to porn, if you're alone, you know, look for, I don't know, spicy audios. I find like a community on Reddit that's like Gone Wild Audio Trans subreddit, would uploads like sexy audios of like even trans women like doing horny things, and that helps a lot getting aroused, especially if you like follow up the instructions, or like the audio a little bit in that term. Especially, it's kind of like a jerk off instruction type of thing, but it's like a more like they're more grounded in a more sentimental kind of like the basis that a lot of trans women are gonna really finding themselves into to get aroused on like sexual relationships, especially. And that's what it really actually is. Oh, broad recommended. You can also look like reading erotica, or playing erotica games. I find especially playing erotica games like a little bit better than listening to audios or reading erotica, but it depends on the person, especially. So it's not like a exclusive experience on all trans women or anything. It's like it depends on what person we're talking about. And like I think it's especially considerable that a lot of trans women are gonna be finding themselves like in like a more needing of like a emotional connection with their partner, with their sexual partner and everything. And there's a lot of consensual stuff going on here, and I feel like I kind of sense, especially in my experience as trans woman, that I find myself, and this might be one reason why I'm a trans being lesbian, or I look exclusively for woman, cis, or trans or whatever. That want some kind of like a emotional bond with your sexual partner or whatever. So that's like sort of like my personal experience for like with the sexual relationships and like sexual life, and like being a trans woman. It might vary from person to person, but I feel it might help a lot of newer trans women, especially who started HRT, to understand how does it feel on their sex life, for a lot of trans women out there. So that's obviously that. I hope this helps, and maybe you'll find it helpful at some point or another. So yeah, anyway, I hope you like this one anyway, and I hope it helps. I love you all, my sweet little babies.